Hello Habibti, kifint? Hello my friend, how are you doing? My name is Myron and in this video I'll be teaching you exactly what Mela means in Maltese, as well as a few examples of how you can use it. And if you've been to Malta before, chances are you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here, because the word Mela seems to pop up everywhere when locals are speaking. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to check out my free ebook in the description below, as it's got the 50 most used words in Maltese, which is perfect if you're just starting out. Anyway, let's explore what Mela means in Maltese. So here's the thing. On its own, and without any context, Mela doesn't really mean anything. Like if I just randomly say Mela to you right now, it doesn't have a direct translation in English, but in different contexts, it can take on loads of different meanings. So let's take a look. It can mean things like, of course, okay, or all right, certainly, so, or then. It can mean, if you're thinking. It can mean go ahead or tell me more, and it can mean yes. And actually, it can even mean no if you're saying it sarcastically. But as I said, once again, these translations are all based on the context of how it is being said. So let's run through a couple sentence examples to give you a better idea of what I mean. And we'll start with an example of where Mela means of course. So imagine a Maltese friend says to you, "Here, my friend, do you like pizza?" Which translated in Maltese would be, "Aw sieħbi, inti tħobb il-pizza?" And to this, your response could well be Mela. And in this instance, Mela means of course. Of course I like pizza. And if you don't like pizza, well, I'm sorry, but we just can't be friends. I mean, who doesn't like pizza? Anyway, let's take a look at what another example of what Mela could mean depending on context. And this time, we're looking at how Mela can mean something like go ahead, or tell me more, or even let's continue where we left off. So, imagine this. A friend of yours is telling you a story about what happened at work. But whilst he's talking, you both get interrupted. Maybe your food arrives, or perhaps somebody else joins in on the conversation. Now, once that interruption is over, you could very well turn around back to your friend and say, Mela. And in this instance, that's kind of like saying, go on, finish the story. And just like I've done with my hand there, you could even add in a little hand gesture to show him that you want him to carry on. And the funny thing is that he could also use Mela before jumping into his story. It would almost be like him saying, anyway, where was I? And yeah, in this case, Mela works like a little reset button, if you like. It's the word that is able to get the conversation flowing again. Okay, now let's take a look at another one. And this time we're looking at how Mela can mean no when it is said sarcastically. So imagine a Maltese friend says to you, "Can you eat soup with a fork?" Which translated in Maltese would be "Tista tiekol soppa bil-furketta." And to this your response could be Mela hi. And in this instance, Mela means obviously not. Okay, so it's a sarcastic response that means no, because obviously you cannot eat soup with a fork. Well, not effectively anyway. And also, just so you know, he in Mela he is kind of like saying brother or friend. So yeah, the whole response is kind of like saying, yes, my friend, so it means no, because it's sarcastic. And in the same instance though, Mela could actually mean yes, when it isn't said sarcastically. So, for example, if a Maltese friend says to you, "Can you eat soup with a spoon?" Which translated in Maltese would be "Tista tiekol soppa b'kuċċerina." And in this instance, your response could be Mela. And in this instance, Mela means yes. Okay? Because obviously you can eat soup with a spoon. Now, let me show you an example of how Mela can be used as a filler word, kind of like when we say when we're thinking. So you could say, Mela x'ħenieklu għad-teħ illejla. And this translates to, what are we going to eat for tea tonight? Okay, so yeah, Mela can also be used as a filler word to allow you time to think before speaking. Now, if you're still a little bit unsure of what Mela means, I'm going to tell you something really cool that I found out about this word when researching this topic in more depth. And that is that although Mela is very, very much a Maltese word, this idea, if you like, of using one little word in loads of different ways actually exists in other languages too. So, for example, in Lithuania, they apparently have this little word which is nu. And apparently it can mean yes, it can mean no, or maybe, or sure, of course, and even tell me everything. Similarly, in Austria, they have oida. Spain have pues, and Russia have davai. And in fact, even in English, we have words like so or well, which have a multitude of different meanings depending on the context and tone in which it is used. Now, obviously, I probably butchered the pronunciation of the words above, so please feel free to correct me if you know what they are. I mean, I know this is a Maltese language channel, but it's always cool to hear about other languages too. But yeah, basically, pretty much every country has these magic words that don't necessarily translate well, but locals use them constantly and for a multitude of different things. You can almost see these words as though they are the Swiss Army knife of words for a language. But wait, because this video is actually far from over, because there are actually a few different variations of the word Mela that you'll hear in Maltese. Let me show you a couple of them. So we have Mela le, Mela, and Mela hi, like I told you about earlier. And what exactly do these mean? Well, Mela le sounds like it could be no, because obviously le is the Maltese word for no. But actually, this is a sarcastic variation, because instead, the literal translation of this is kind of like, what, do you think the answer is no? So, in other words, it's like saying, yes, obviously, okay? And that's Mela le. So if someone asks you if you like coffee, you can say Mela le, which would basically mean, yes, of course, I like coffee. Okay, now, the next one is Mela. And if you hear this, just know that this is a very, very strong yes, okay? It's almost like saying, absolutely, 100%. So, for example, if you ask someone, are you coming to the party? And they respond with, Mela. It actually means that, yes, of course, they are absolutely going to come along to the party, okay? And that's Mela. Right, and the final one we have here is Mela hi. And as I said, this is kind of like a casual way of saying, yeah, bro, or yes, mate, or yes, my friend. And one more that you might actually hear Maltese people say regularly is Mela zob. But be careful with this one, because although it means absolutely yes, the word zob is actually a rude word. So this is definitely something you would never say to a person unless you knew them. So yeah, just be careful with that one. So just to make sure that you understand everything, Mela on its own doesn't have a literal translation, but in conversation, it can mean loads of different things, as it's really, really flexible. It's just one of those words that makes Maltese sound so unique. And it's also one of the first words you'll hear locals using over and over again. And the more that you hear it and use it yourself, the more you'll start to understand it. And if you want to understand even more Maltese, just like I was able to help my student Matthew to do, go to the link in the description below where you can access my online Maltese language course. The course teaches you all the fundamental knowledge that you need to speak Maltese confidently. So the next time that you hear somebody say Mela, you can smile and respond as you know exactly what they mean. Grazie ħafna u narak dalwaqt.